If power abandons you, it's because you became predictable, moral, loyal. Predators don't lose power, prey does. Correct your posture or accept selection. You believe power leaves because someone betrays you, because circumstances change, because the world is unfair. That belief is the lens that made you weak. Power does not disappear randomly. It withdraws when it no longer recognizes you as necessary. The first mistake men make is moralizing power. They think authority is earned by effort, loyalty, or good intent. That is the language of subordinates. Power does not reward virtue. It responds to leverage, posture, and consequence. When those signals degrade, power exits silently, like capital leaving a collapsing economy. You didn't lose power, you leaked it. Power is not something you hold. It is something others decide to grant you moment by moment based on what you represent to their survival, ambition, or fear. The moment you stopped being essential or dangerous, your position was reevaluated, and the verdict was delivered without discussion. This is where the lens must break. Men think power is taken from them. In reality, power senses weakness before you do. It notices hesitation in your decisions, softness in your boundaries, predictability in your reactions. The moment your behavior becomes readable, you stop being a variable, and variables are where power lives. Sun Tzu never spoke about morality. He spoke about positioning, about terrain, about perception. A general who loses command does not blame the enemy. He studies where his formation collapsed, where his presence stopped commanding gravity. Your life works the same way. Power follows those who distort expectations, those who cannot be easily categorized, those whose silence is heavier than others' speech. When you began explaining yourself, seeking consensus, or proving loyalty, you inverted the hierarchy. You told the room you were no longer a threat, only a resource. And resources are used, not respected. This chapter exists to strip you of comforting explanations. There is no villain who stole your power. There is no unfair system conspiring against you. There is only a misalignment between who you are and what power requires from you now. Power is opportunistic. It does not honor history. Past victories mean nothing if your current posture signals decay. The man who once dominated but now seeks reassurance is more dangerous to himself than the man who never had power at all. At least the latter is invisible. You are not being punished. You are being assessed. Every environment runs a constant audit. Who leads? Who follows? Who is expendable? When you hesitate to enforce boundaries, when you overinvest emotionally, when you signal that harmony matters more than outcomes, the audit updates. Your rank adjusts downward, not out of malice, out of efficiency. This is the lens shift. Power is not loyal to you. You must remain loyal to power's logic. Sun Tzu warned that disorder comes not from chaos, but from misjudgment. You misjudged what was being measured. You thought character mattered more than control. You thought consistency mattered more than unpredictability. You thought being understood mattered more than being feared or needed. That misunderstanding is why power left. Before any strategy can be deployed, this lens must be installed permanently. Power is conditional, temporary, and mercilessly observant. It watches how you move when challenged, how you respond when ignored, how you behave when you no longer dominate the room. If you flinch, it leaves. If you explain, it leaves. If you seek moral validation, it leaves. This chapter is not about recovery. It is about diagnosis. Until you accept that power obeys laws, not feelings, you will continue to lose it while believing you are doing the right thing. And men who do the right thing at the wrong level become lessons for others. Power does not leave emotionally, it leaves mechanically. There is a process, cold, automatic, repeatable, by which authority is withdrawn from a man.
Most never see it because it operates beneath language. By the time you feel disrespected, sidelined, ignored, the mechanism has already finished its work. Power watches behavior, not intention. The first stage is signal decay. This happens when your actions stop producing consequences. You speak, but nothing moves. You set boundaries, but they are negotiated. You give direction, but compliance becomes optional. The environment learns something critical. You can be tested without cost. Once this signal decays, power begins distancing itself from you. The second stage is predictability exposure. When people can anticipate your reactions, you lose strategic depth. They know when you will forgive, when you will explain, when you will tolerate disrespect to keep the peace. Predictability turns you from a force into a pattern, and patterns are managed. This is where most men accelerate their own decline. They try to regain control by talking more, clarifying intentions, showing effort, appealing to fairness. Every word sharpens the enemy's map of you. Every explanation removes mystery. Power does not live where everything is visible. Then comes reclassification. You are no longer treated as an authority figure. You are reclassified as one of three things: a utility, a stabilizer, a buffer. Utilities are used. Stabilizers absorb chaos so others can rise. Buffers take damage so the system stays intact. None of these roles hold power. They exist to protect it for someone else. You didn't notice the switch because it came as disguised as praise. Reliable, understanding, solid guy. These are not compliments. They are labels assigned to men who no longer need to be negotiated with. Power is ruthless in this way. It does not announce the demotion. It simply stops asking. The final stage is authority bypass. Decisions start happening without you. Information reaches you late. People no longer seek your approval. They inform you after execution. This is the clearest signal power has already moved on. When authority is bypassed, respect is already dead. Here is the part that destabilizes most men. This process happens even if you are competent, even if you are smart, even if you are right. Power does not reward correctness, it rewards pressure. If your presence does not change outcomes, it is irrelevant. If your absence does not create risk, you are optional. Power flows toward the node that creates leverage, not the one that creates comfort. Sun Tzu understood this mechanism deeply. He wrote that the skilled commander makes himself impossible to ignore, not through noise, but through consequence. His silence changes terrain. His movement forces response. That is power's language. Most men reverse this. They attempt to regain power by being agreeable, consistent, morally impressive. This only confirms the reclassification. You become safe, and safety is the enemy of sovereignty. Understand this clearly. Power withdraws the moment resistance to you becomes profitable. When others can challenge you, delay you, disrespect you, or bypass you, and gain something from it, your authority is finished, unless the equation changes. This chapter exists to remove false hope. You cannot persuade power to return. You cannot explain your way back into dominance. You cannot earn it through loyalty. The mechanism is not emotional. It is mathematical. Leverage in, leverage out. Pressure present, pressure absent. Cost imposed, cost removed. Until your behavior restores cost, power will continue to orbit someone else. This is not personal. It is selection.
Power doesn't abandon men randomly. It abandons types. Once the mechanism activates, the environment begins sorting you into a recognizable category. This is where decline accelerates, because archetypes are easy to manage. The moment you are seen as a type instead of a force, you stop being negotiated with and start being handled. There are three dominant archetypes that reliably lose power. Most men rotate between them without realizing it. The first is the moral shield. This man believes goodness protects him.
He leads with fairness, transparency, and ethical consistency, assuming these traits create authority. In reality, they create predictability. The moral shield reacts with outrage instead of consequence. He appeals to what should happen rather than enforcing what will happen. Power interprets this as a refusal to apply pressure. The moral shield becomes useful as a symbol, never as a ruler. Others exploit his principles while violating them in private. He is shocked when betrayed because he believed morality was a defense. It never was. It was a declaration of restraint. The second archetype is the over-available asset. This man confuses presence with power. He is always reachable, always responsive, always accommodating. He believes accessibility builds importance. It does the opposite. Availability erodes scarcity, and scarcity is the backbone of leverage. The over-available asset trains others to treat his time, energy, and authority as unlimited. There is no urgency in dealing with him because he will still be there tomorrow, explaining, waiting, adjusting. Power does not settle in men who can be paused. He becomes the system's shock absorber. Problems are routed to him. Tension is dumped on him. Others rise by offloading weight onto his reliability. He is thanked, but never followed. The third archetype is the most dangerous because it feels strong, the controlled aggressor. This man believes occasional displays of force preserve dominance. He stays restrained most of the time, then explodes when thresholds are crossed. He thinks unpredictability equals power. It does not. His aggression is emotional, not strategic. It is reactive, not surgical. The environment learns his limits, then plays just below them. His outbursts become vents, useful for releasing pressure without changing hierarchy. Power avoids emotional volatility. It prefers cold menace over loud reaction. The controlled aggressor becomes theatrical, not feared. His intensity is managed, anticipated, and eventually ignored. Here is the pattern that unites all three. They seek validation from the system they are trying to dominate. The moral shield wants moral acknowledgement. The over-available asset wants appreciation. The controlled aggressor wants recognition of his strength. Power gives none of these. Power respects only one thing: men who impose cost without explanation. Once you are categorized into an archetype, everything you do is interpreted through that lens. Attempts to change behavior are dismissed as anomalies. Your reputation calcifies, your ceiling lowers. This is why men feel trapped. They sense their authority slipping, but cannot identify the cage. The cage is not external, it is perceptual. You have become readable. Sun Tzu warned that when an enemy understands your patterns, the battle is already lost. Archetypes are patterns. They are shortcuts for control. This chapter is not about shame. It is about identification. If you recognize yourself in one of these roles, understand this: power has already adjusted to you. It is no longer cautious. It is no longer alert. It knows how to use you. And anything that can be used is no longer sovereign. Power leaving you feels personal because you are inside the event. History proves it is structural. Across war, empires, courts, corporations, and tribes, power has always behaved the same way. It abandons figures the moment their presence stops distorting outcomes, not when they fail, not when they are wrong, but when they become manageable. Look at fallen generals. They were not removed after their first loss. They were removed when subordinates stopped fearing their judgment, when soldiers sensed hesitation in command, when orders became requests. The battlefield did not punish them. Their own ranks did. Power relocated upward or sideways to whoever filled the vacuum. Courts worked no differently. Advisors lost influence not because they spoke falsely, but because rulers no longer needed to guess what they would say. Predictable counsel is background noise. The silent strategist who withholds opinion until necessary becomes indispensable. Power gravitates towards uncertainty paired with consequence. This is the deeper threat most men never consider. Power abandons before collapse. By the time Rome fell, power had already left the Senate. By the time kings were executed, power had already moved to generals, financiers, mobs. Symbols fall last, authority leaves first. In human nature, this pattern repeats daily. Groups instinctively sense when a man's enforcement capacity weakens. They test him with small violations, delays, jokes, boundary nudges. If no cost follows, the tests escalate, not out of cruelty, but out of calibration. Humans are constantly mapping where pressure exists. This is why respect vanishes gradually, then suddenly. You don't wake up irrelevant. You wake up to the realization that decisions were made without you, that loyalty was conditional, that your history bought you nothing. That is the moment power has already transferred. Sun Tzu wrote that victory belongs to the general who arrives after power has shifted, not before. He understood timing over sentiment. The man who clings to past authority is already obsolete. Most men misread this phase. They think the answer is to reassert fairness, to remind others of past sacrifices, to appeal to shared values. This is what doomed leaders do right before removal. They speak to a world that no longer exists. Power does not remember. It tracks present leverage only. History shows that men who regain power do so through one method alone. They change how costly it is to ignore them. Not through anger, not through speeches, through strategic repositioning that makes their involvement unavoidable. Those who fail attempt to reclaim power directly. They confront, they demand, they expose weakness. This only confirms their loss. Power never returns to men who beg for it openly. This chapter exists to remove another illusion. You are not uniquely targeted. You are not especially unlucky. You are not misunderstood. You are experiencing the same audit every man in history faced when his utility exceeded his threat. Power is ancient. It has no patience. It will abandon kings, fathers, leaders, and protectors the moment their posture softens. It doesn't hate you. It simply moves where pressure is highest. Understand this, or repeat history quietly, while someone else inherits your position without resistance.
Once power leaves, chasing it is suicide. Men make this mistake reflexively. They confront, they explain, they escalate emotionally. Every one of these moves signals desperation, and desperation tells the environment you have no leverage left. Power does not return to men who reach for it. It returns to men who restructure the terrain. The reversal begins with withdrawal, not pursuit, not visible retreat, strategic absence. You stop offering access where none is earned. You remove availability without announcement. Silence replaces reassurance. This is not punishment, it is recalibration. Power re-enters the equation when uncertainty returns. Sun Tzu called this shaping the battlefield before the battle. You do not demand respect, you make disrespect expensive. The first move is cost restoration. You identify where boundaries were violated without consequence, and you close those channels. Requests now meet delay, assumptions meet refusal, familiarity meets distance. No explanations, no emotional signaling, only friction. People must feel that interaction with you requires calculation again. The second move is selective pressure. You stop being universally agreeable. Pressure is applied asymmetrically, only where it matters. This confuses those who mapped you as predictable. Inconsistency in enforcement is a flaw for moralists. It is a weapon for strategists. Power reappears when others cannot anticipate which behaviors will trigger consequence. The third move is value opacity. You cease narrating your intentions. You stop clarifying motives. You let actions stand unexplained. Mystery forces others to project risk. When people cannot read you, they hedge. Hedging restores leverage. This is where most men fail. They feel compelled to be understood. That impulse is fatal. Power lives in the gap between action and interpretation. The fourth move is replacement leverage. You build parallel options, alliances, roles, pathways that reduce dependence on any single environment. Power increases when your absence creates inconvenience. When you are no longer trapped, your presence becomes negotiated again. This is not rebellion, it is redundancy. Understand this, you do not announce change, you become difficult to manage. When others must adjust behavior to keep you engaged, power has begun flowing back, not because they like you, but because systems respect friction. This reversal feels uncomfortable because it requires killing habits that once kept you safe. Over-communication, over-availability, over-justification. These were survival behaviors. They are not sovereignty behaviors. Sun Tzu warned that the skilled fighter wins without visible struggle. This chapter is not about dominance displays. It is about repositioning so that dominance becomes implied. Power returns when your time becomes scarce, your reactions become unreadable, your compliance becomes conditional. At that moment, the environment updates its audit, not with gratitude, with caution. That is how power re-enters the room. Power does not return to the man you were. This is the final barrier most men cannot cross. They attempt to reclaim authority while preserving the identity that lost it. That identity is already marked. The environment remembers. Power does too. Reversal requires death. Not metaphorical growth, not improvement, but identity termination. The old version of you was built for acceptance. Even if you called it leadership, it was optimized for belonging, stability, and moral coherence. That identity worked only while pressure was low. Under stress, it collapsed. Power will not reattach to a structure that already failed. The first death is emotional access. You stop leaking internal state. Approval, disappointment, anger, satisfaction, these become private. The world no longer receives feedback that it can exploit. When others cannot read your internal weather, they lose predictive control. Emotion is not weakness. Visibility of emotion is. The second death is narrative identity. You abandon the story you tell about yourself, the loyal one, the fair one, the reliable one, the strong but reasonable one. These narratives exist for others, not for you. Power requires function, not identity branding. From this point forward, you do not explain who you are. You allow behavior to define boundaries. The third death is moral attachment. This is the most violent cut. You detach from the need to be seen as good, not immoral, amoral. You operate on outcome, not validation. You accept that some doors will close permanently when you stop being safe. Those doors led to cages anyway. Replacement begins only after these deaths. The new identity is colder but simpler. It is built on 3 pillars. Scarcity. Your time, attention, and approval are no longer ambient. They are allocated. Opacity. Your intentions are not public property. Others infer at their own risk. Conditionality. Cooperation with you produces benefit. Resistance produces cost. This identity does not argue. It does not perform. It does not seek closure. It observes, adjusts, and acts. Sun Tzu wrote that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Identity death is that art applied inward. You remove the self others learn to manipulate. Most men cannot do this because it feels like self-betrayal.
It is not. It is self-upgrading through elimination. You are not becoming cruel. You are becoming unreadable. You are not abandoning values. You are removing their broadcast. After this chapter, power does not return like a reward. It aligns with you because your posture demands recalibration. Others change first. You simply stop leaking weakness. The man who emerges from this process is not louder. He is quieter. He is not more visible. He is harder to replace. That is the only identity power recognizes.
This is where the path splits. Everything before this chapter was diagnostic and corrective. This chapter is exclusionary. Not everyone who listens will adapt. Power does not need numbers, it needs alignment. The rest are filtered out. Here is the final warning. Hesitation is already a decision. Men lose power permanently, not because they are incapable, but because they delay identity death. They attempt to negotiate with a world that has already moved on. They wait for signals that permission has been granted. Permission never comes. Sun Tzu warned that opportunities multiply as they are seized and vanish as they are questioned. Power operates on the same principle. When the environment senses delay, it reallocates authority elsewhere, quietly, efficiently, irreversibly. This is the moment where most men relapse. They reintroduce old behaviors just this once. They explain themselves to regain comfort. They soften boundaries to avoid isolation. Each concession feels minor. Together, they confirm selection failure. Power watches consistency, not intent. Understand what happens if you ignore this warning. You will not be openly defeated. You will be managed, included without influence, respected in words, bypassed in reality. You will become the man others reference but never follow, a symbol of experience without authority. That is not tragedy. That is utility. The elite path is narrower. It requires sustained discomfort, social friction, misinterpretation, distance. You will be called cold, arrogant, difficult. None of those labels matter. They are issued by systems adjusting to loss of control. Power does not announce its return. It reveals itself through behavior shifts around you. People ask instead of assume. Delays disappear. Resistance becomes careful. If these signals do not appear, you are not aligned yet. This is not motivation. It is a final filter. You either internalize power's logic permanently, or you revert under pressure and are selected out. There is no hybrid identity that holds sovereignty. There is only adaptation or erasure. Sun Tzu wrote that the victorious strategist wins before the battle is fought. This entire script was the battle. What follows is execution or retreat disguised as patience. Choose silently. Power does not wait.